1 minute, and then otherwise we'll get started. Usually she sets, then she sets that, then she gives us a heads up about talking. So we're waiting. Just be a minute. We're going to do just the Historic District Commission. We'll have Peter Nunes and William Sheffield that need to be reappointed. Okay? And we're really looking for someone, I'm going to mention, on the assessment board of review. We really need somebody for that. So if anybody knows. Anyone? Are you interested in applying?
Doesn't sound like much fun.
It would be good if you were interested. I know, I feel bad. Okay. Call the Town Council regular session to order at 7:45 for December 13th, 2010. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. If we could please have the roll call, Dale.
Council President Whaley.
Here.
Council Vice President McAtee. Here. Councilwoman Eddy. Here. Councilwoman Fogarty. Here. Councilman O'Neill.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. Could we please have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings for the work session, November 22nd, 2010?
I move approval of the minutes of the meeting for the work session November 22nd, 2010.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 500. Could I please have a motion for the regular session, November 2nd, 2010?
I move approval of the regular session, November 22nd, 2010.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 500. which brings us to public hearing.
Number 5.
Consent
Sorry,
agenda.
could I have a motion for the consent agenda, and this covers items A through I.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion, a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries for the consent agenda 500. Thank you. Brings us now
Excuse me,
to the
for
public.
clarification, you said A through I, that was for the licenses. There's also consent agenda items for the new business.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to public hearing. Item A, we have a public hearing relative to proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance as follows. We have the yield plan 142, which some deletions, and I will be reading the additions. 142 yield plan. We have a plan demonstrating a subdivisions or land development project's maximum density, which is the maximum number of lots or units, taken into account all environmental, natural, and man-made physical constraints to development, including but not limited to wetlands, topography, groundwater characteristics, view sheds, and existing improvements. A yield plan shall meet all conventional zoning and subdivision requirements and shall not assume that any waiver, variance, or special use permits will be granted on parcels located in areas not serviced by public sewers and not proposed for extension of public sewers. The yield plan shall include the location of an appropriate on-site wastewater treatment system on each lot. The submission requirements for a yield plan shall be described in the Town of South Kingstown subdivision regulations. So we have the public work session, the public hearing here. Do we, Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you, or Vin?
Excuse me, Council President Whaley, I have a communication.
Thank you.
Communication dated October 13th to the Town Council from the Planning Board recommending the amendments as noted on the agenda and incorporating findings of facts, consistency with the comprehensive community plan, and findings of consistency with the purposes of zoning.
Thank you, Dale.
Good evening, members of the council. This public hearing item will consider the amendments to the zoning ordinance at Article 12 definitions, specifically to definition 142. The planning board recommendation, as noted by the clerk, was crafted at their meeting on October the 12th and transmitted to the council with my memo covering on correspondence dated October 13th. Yield plans are utilized in the development review process by the planning board, and basically the yield plan is utilized to establish a baseline density for a project that uses a conventional development approach. These plans are important, and they define the project's maximum potential density based upon the lot's configuration, zoning classification, and land suitable for development. The yield plan requirement is generally applicable to major subdivisions and land development projects, typically greater than 6 units or more. This technique is also used in the consideration of projects that wish to exercise the use of flexible frontage waiver under Section 502.2 of the zoning ordinance, which is entitled Lot Frontage and Width Flexible Provisions. This latter section is typically used for minor subdivisions, that is less than 5 lots or fewer, where a developer wishes to avoid building new private or public roads and associated infrastructure to support the development proposal. Here, the yield plan submittal is used to document that the project's site and density can be supported through a conventional subdivision design, and they're requesting a waiver to not put that in. Because a waiver is involved, this also requires a public hearing with notice to abutting property owners. The planning board has been discussing these changes to this definition for some time now. and their recommendation is to provide additional detail and clarity for the preparation of such plans. It has been felt at times that the current language is not as succinct or definitive enough to protect the town's interest in the review process. And this lack of specificity in the current definition may lead to a developer to propose project densities that are higher than the development parcel can reasonably and sustainably support. The proposed language was developed to better address this situation in the early part of the review process, which it comes at the conceptual master plan review stage for major land development projects. The proposed new definition provides specific detail and criteria for use by the planning board in the evaluation of these plans, and I think it will strengthen, it's the board's position and staff concurs, it will strengthen the town's ability to properly gauge the baseline density going into a project review process. One of the particular things that's noted in the proposed language is that each lot in a yield plan where it's not proposed to be serviced by sewers would have to support its own on-site wastewater treatment facility. We have had circumstances in the recent past where yield plans show lots and then have the septic system shown off the lot, either in open space or in some other configuration, and I think that was one of the means by which, that propelled this to come to the fore at the recommendation of the planning board. And it's the staff view that this will be a strengthening of our ability to properly review development proposals. And in my memorandum to the town manager in this regard, we had placed a draft motion for the council's consideration if you agree that this change should go forward following the public hearing this evening. I do have Chairwoman Mack and Mr. Kennerson from the planning board are here this evening as well. Should you have any questions directed in their direction, I don't know if they want to speak on this issue or not, but if the council has questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them to your satisfaction.
Do we have any questions here at the table? Carol?
Yes, Vin, I just wanted to, if you, currently, under the ordinance that we have now, if you had an off-lot septic, would that be approved? I mean, what does the planning board do with that now?
Well, I think what's happening now is some of the designers of subdivisions are becoming more creative with how they try to push the density envelope a little bit. And I think the current definition just doesn't have the specificity, so I guess it becomes a point. I mean, the planning board ultimately has to accept or reject a yield plan. I think the board would be more comfortable having the specific criteria laid out right in the definition so that, there's less argument about, whether or not a plan is consistent with the definition or not. So,
Is that also true when you, when a developer puts in a development is a project that's denser than you would accept? I mean, is it the same true for those developments?
well, I think it will provide ultimately a better tool for the planning board to utilize to screen out and require that these yield plans be realistic and sustainable in terms of the ability of the parcel to carry the development from a carrying capacity perspective, so.
So it would really just, it eliminates the developer coming in with an unrealistic number in the first instance.
Hopefully, I think it
Yeah.
should tighten that. I don't know, in the development review process, you often see, because the developer's interest is, not necessarily the same as the town, so.
Right.
Yeah, that's, therein lies the rub, I guess, a little bit, but this will be a strengthening of the board's ability to evaluate these proposals.
And it doesn't limit them in getting special use permits or variances on,
Well,
doesn't-
I think what the new definition would say that the yield plan should not assume that any zoning relief will be granted as the basis for their yield plan. So it could be setbacks or for existing structures or that sort of thing. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any further questions here at the table? Jim?
And yield, I guess I always have a problem with that word. Just give me a rough example. More than 6, let's say we have 10-lot approval under this plan, yield plan. What will the affordable housing add to it, and what could a comprehensive permit add to that? I'm looking for net yield.
Well, on a 10-lot yield plan that was acceptable to the planning board on a conventional design basis, the inclusionary zoning requirements for affordable housing would require that 20% or 2 of the units be affordable, and in consideration of that, there would also be an allowance to build a net of 12 on the property. So in essence, during that review process, the developer would have to provide a second yield plan to show how the two extra units, so to speak, could be accommodated on the site.
Okay, so it's the 2 extra units which are the inclusionary. You're still getting 10 of your original demand. Or are
Right.
you getting 8 plus 4 inclusionary?
No, the first the yield plan would define 10.
Yep.
And in the example you cite, inclusionary zoning for affordable housing would bonus that by 20%.
All right, so you're at 12.
Right.
Comprehensive permit?
Well, comprehensive permit's a bit different insofar as if you had as an example, if you had a parcel that was located in a 1-acre zone, an R40 zoning district, and a developer came to the town, a for-profit developer, or a nonprofit for that matter, and wished to provide a comprehensive permit, we have language in our comprehensive plan and our affordable housing production plan that would provide some governance as to how much additional density could be requested. So in an R40 district, we have, it's like a zoning ladder, I guess we termed it. They could base their request on up to an R30 density. So they'd move one zoning district towards a more greater density. Permit for a comprehensive permit by a for-profit developer would have to have 25% affordable as a requirement of the state law, minimum.
All right,
It's a little different circumstance, actually, because it's a specific regulatory vehicle defined by state law for comprehensive permits.
So back to my example of 10, can you compound this? Can you take the inclusionary zoning up to 12 and then also apply the comp permit to that 12
I would say
now?
no. That would, yeah. No, you could not. I agree. The solicitor agrees, and I'm very confident that that would be 2 bites of the same apple.
All right. If someone
that,
else
Jim?
has a question, I still have more questions, but I'll wait for the other members.
Any other questions? I just want to make sure that we stick to the 142 yield plan. Jim, do you have more questions?
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to figure out if that yield is the final yield. That's why I said to Vin, is this a net yield or a yield? I get, I see this word, but I've been to plenty of planning board meetings where we wind up with a lot more. So I'm just trying to figure that out, so.
Would you like to continue, or Carol, do you have a question?
I have one, unless you...
I'll let Carol go, and
Okay.
I'll wait. Yep.
I'm just concerned on this one area where it says, "A yield plan shall meet all conventional zoning and subdivision requirements and shall not assume that any waivers, variances, or special use permits will be granted." It doesn't prohibit them for asking for such things. It just doesn't assume. Is that what you're saying in this?
Well, that's, the language is plain. I think what it means
If
is,
there is a reason, if a builder or a contractor wants to go for a special use permit, this doesn't in and of itself prohibit that. they could still go to zoning.
No, I think what it says is that for the planning board's consideration of a yield plan to define the basic maximum number of lots or units permitted, that the developer's proposal should not assume that. And the planning board, if somebody did assume that, the planning board would have a legitimate reason to say the yield plan is just not sufficient and we don't accept it.
I guess the word I'm asking, it doesn't prohibit such a thing at a later date in the process, or?
Well, I mean, if there was a specific, if one of the lots created on approved subdivision, later on, the person owning that property wanted to, seek some relief or something, there wouldn't be a problem with that. I think this is specific to the yield plan requiring that it meet the basic requirements of zoning and without varying. So it is strong in that regard, and I think that's the intention of the recommended language.
Thank you. Jim?
This yield plan cover, as an example, some of the our busy commercial waterfront areas, which are some residential, like, I don't know if Mary's or Roy's or Waccamaw Park, that's a commercial waterfront. To include those, says we don't really have an underlying zone, maybe we do in one have an underlying zoning, but commercial waterfront, let's say.
Well, if somebody was proposing a subdivision in one of those zoning districts that was a major subdivision, then they would have to submit a plan that would show, it would cover, a subdivision of that sort as well. Probably, I mean, some of those examples you cite are legal non-conforming uses of land, so I don't think there's a great likelihood that they'd come forward as for a subdivision basis, but they're all zoned something, so if they did, for the long-term use, they would have to conform to this if it, in the development review process before the planning board.
I'm just thinking of like Roy's. Do you know if that is, what the underlying zoning is? Is it a residential or is it commercial?
No, it's residential. I think Roy's is R200. I think it's a split zone, isn't it? Roy's? Yeah, Mary's is a split zone with commercial waterfront, commercial neighborhood, and then I think R20 to the rear, but I mean, those are long-standing legal non-conforming uses of property, so.
Last question, private road going into a lot, a private road off a public road. Why can't we hold to the 5-acre residential compound zoning on that? Why can that be broken down into what maybe the underlying zoning would be?
Well, I think when people use the residential compound vehicle, which is still alive and well in our regulations, most often it's the choice of the developer to proceed in that particular regard, working with the planning board. They agree to have a much less density than is typically the place, unless it's already in an R200 zoning district. The residential compound has an average lot size of 200,000 square feet, and it's limited to no more than 10 lots per residential compound. The benefit to the developer, I suppose, in that circumstance is in the consideration of the residential compound, the road standard is far less than would be required for a public road, and it's oftentimes a gravel road on a reduced right-of-way, and so that there's a that was a very popular vehicle, I guess, in the 70s and 80s in this town for development. We're not seeing it so much these days, but it's not completely. But, we would still utilize the yield plan to determine what the maximum potential under a residential compound scenario would be. Because it's an average density, residential compounds often contain open space as well.
So if I had, as an example, an R80 district, a landlocked piece of property serviced by a private road, but the underlying zoning is R80, if all the land constraints are fine, that's 3-home development rather than a 1 for a 5-acre?
Well, if it's R80 zoning, the person owning the property would have the right to come forward under that zoning designation for consideration of a development proposal. You know, it's,
Back to the hockey sticks again.
well, no, maybe I'm not understanding your question.
Private driveway, private road,
Right.
landlocked 6-acre piece off of that.
Landlocked?
Well, off a private road, no public road.
Well, if a lot, well, roads create frontage, so they, you know, to conform to zoning. That's how you create it. If you had a landlocked piece, and if it was accessible by a right-of-way, it would have, over the intervening properties, it would typically have the right to build one home on it.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, versus where you have the frontage, you get a road in there and then hopefully develop it for your zoning standard. But I'm talking about where there's a private road that meets a public road. Why do they have, why aren't we then back to the 5-acre residential compound rule?
Well, I mean, in our community, you can have private roads can service minor subdivisions that don't meet the residential compound rule for, I mean, maybe I'm not understanding your question, so.
I guess I just don't see the residential compound rules seem to be applied whether you have public frontage or private frontage. I just never see it applied. So, I mean, my thinking is it's just back to the hockey stick game.
Well, you know, it applies more broadly than that because the yield plan is not just used for flexible frontage. It is used to define the base density of a development that comes before the planning board early in the process. So going forward, everyone understand what the baseline density is, and it gets agreed to. If it gets agreed to at the master plan level and the approval is given, then there's a vested right towards that density going through the balance of the process.
Totally disagree, but maybe we're talking apples and oranges here. I have a problem
Step
with that.
number one, isn't it? In the
Right.
Carol?
I just, one short question, Ben. The language of a conventional as opposed to cluster major subdivision was removed, so that distinction is no longer going to be made?
Well, we don't have a cluster development vehicle under our regulations at present. We haven't for a little bit of time. What we have is called flexible design residential development, which is, or FDRP, which is an iteration, a more modern term, at least for our community, for cluster. It's often called conservation development. So we're not abandoning, you know, a conservation development is a type of cluster, and our FDRP is really a type of cluster it's just a more contemporary version of it with, you know, different standards applied that we put in place several years ago.
So are we going to make a distinction between conventional major subdivisions and the FDRP?
The subdivision regulations go into great detail about the requirements for FDRP to be applicable. And actually, it's a call of the planning board whether to allow a conventional subdivision, which would be one that would not have residual open space that's commonly held, to allow that or a conventional model. So we still have both, but you know, during the review process, it gets defined as to which would be the appropriate vehicle to go forward.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's no more further questions here at the table, I'd like to open it to any questions on the floor. Seeing none, can we have a motion to close public hearing item A?
I moved. Second.
Can we have a motion to second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. And can we have this motion read?
I move that we approve public hearing item A concerning the South Kingstown zoning ordinance, Article 12, definition 142, yield plan. And I also move that we incorporate and reference the recommendations contained in the planning board's correspondence on the subject dated October 13th, 2010. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. And I'd like to thank the planning board and our staff for all of the work. Thank you. Okay, could we have a motion to open public hearing, item B, public hearing B? Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing relative to proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance, Article 8, signs, which would define sandwich board signs, identify the zoning districts where the signs are permitted, and details standards for the placement and dimensions of the signs as shown on Exhibit 1 attached here too. Thank you, Dale. Van?
Hello again. As noted, these are amendments to be considered to Article 8 signs concerning sandwich boards. These amendments were developed this past fall by the planning board and staff with input from the town's special legal counsel, our economic development committee, and an ad hoc committee on signage that met on 3 occasions to discuss signage generally, but also specifically the sandwich boards. The ad hoc committee included town staff, representatives from the EDC and planning board, local business owners, representatives from the Downtown Merchants Association, and the Peacedale Merchants, the Peacedale Neighborhood Revitalization Group, and the Chamber of Commerce. The amendments provide, as mentioned, for a definition of sandwich board signs, identifies the commercial zones in which they would be permitted, and details standards for the placement and dimensions of the signs. The amendments do not permit these signs in residential zoning districts generally or in support of non-conforming commercial uses in residential zones. As proposed, the amendments would permit 1 sandwich board type sign per business use. No building permit or fee would be required for the signs. Staff and the planning board would note that the sign draft ordinance would provide for a reasonable accommodation for this type of advertising, while the standards detailed would prevent nuisance applications and impediments to mobility of disabled individuals and pedestrians resulting from inappropriate placement of these types of signs. The planning board formalized its recommendations in this regard at their meeting on November the 9th, and they voted to recommend, as noted by the clerk, that the council enact the amendments. In addition, the planning board's, as the clerk noted, correspondence contains findings of fact relative to consistency with the comp plan, consistency with the purposes of zoning, and we also, in my cover memo to the town manager on this, had provided draft motion for consideration by the council should you, at the close of the public hearing, favor these amendments. Basically, we provide a definition of sandwich board. We provide a new section 805F, which contains 10 standards which talk about the placement of the signs, where they can be located on sidewalks or rights-of-way adjacent to the property where the business is located. There are standards that they should not be permanently anchored to the sidewalk, attached or chained to utility poles and the like. It should be displayed at the same parcel or right-of-way adjacent to the business advertising. The sign should not exceed, by the standards proposed, 25 inches in width and 45 inches in height, and the sign display should not exceed a total of 6 square feet per side, And that the size of the sign is a fairly typical standard for what you can purchase and what many merchants in town have purchased. And in fact, the town has purchased that we use sandwich board signs of this sort in support of our town beach, and I believe at the Guild as well. We also had some, one of the standards talks about the use of chalkboards for these signs, to, which restaurants frequently like to do to note specials and that sort of thing. We looked at a lot of different ordinances and coming up with the, definitions both in state and without, from as far flung away as Beverly, Massachusetts, and Milledgeville, Georgia. Through internet, it's amazing how many different ordinances and approaches to this you can see across the country. But this came to the fore this past summer, as the council will recall, when there were some complaints about the proliferation, and the building official made contact with a number of businesses that were employing these, which at present are not permitted under our zoning ordinance. This does provide an avenue to allow and legitimize the use of the signs, and I believe provides reasonable conditions governing the use of them in the commercial zones in the town. So I'd be very pleased to answer any question the councilors may have in this regard. And
Thank you, Vin. Any questions here at the table for Vin? Polly?
You don't see having to limit the number of signs? You have one per business.
well, we had a lot of discussion on that. At one point, we were talking about one per premises, but in the discussion among the various groups, it was felt that, not necessarily every business would want to utilize this vehicle, but there may be a circumstance in a small plaza or a building that has more than one business in it for more than one use to want to have this type of advertising.
Any further questions here at the table? Do we have any questions from the floor? If you could come to the mic, Bobby.
Bob Traeger, Succotash Road. This was brought up at the last meeting, so I feel I said something, and I might as well say something now. You know how it goes. Anyway, the last comment I heard, second to the last, I guess, threw me a little bit in the right direction when I heard that this is a less restrictive than it was before, because I am not in favor of interfering with people's rights unnecessarily. What do they call them, Tea Party? I don't think I'm a Tea Party guy, but I don't know. I think they might not like it that much, telling people what to do, keep government out of people's business. I kind of generally agree with that to a certain extent. I realize it's necessary to police our area for many reasons, but there are many reasons that we can manufacture, like some developments have, you can't hang your clothes in your yard and stuff like that. Stuff like that I can't take. It's hard for me to deal with, and I was hoping that this wasn't going in that direction, and at the end, it sounds like it didn't. It went in and I did read it over a couple of times. I'm a little slow. It takes me a while, but I don't think the restrictions were that bad, and I guess it makes a little sense. We don't want people to be able to put those big, huge signs you see on the highway in front of their house. So I'm going along with it only because we have such a good town and good people working here. But it can get scary when we start worrying about things we don't need to worry about. How about putting some windmills up in town, create an electrical system that would take care of our area? How about solar energy? How about some of those things? I'd like to see those brought up. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Any further questions from the audience? Okay, can we have a motion to close public hearing B? I'm sorry, Carol?
I just wanted to say that I think this is a great addition to the sign ordinance. I mean, it's part of the whole village atmosphere. Everybody the business community seems to be very desirous of it at this point, and it certainly does promote business, open for business, to today's specials, like you said, Vin. So I think this is a very good addition to the sign ordinance. Thank you.
And if I can just add further that this is definitely, I'm sure, support from this town council to show that we definitely support our businesses. And again, thanks to all the people involved in putting this together. Jim?
Yeah, Ella, as we discussed earlier, this does not prevent awnings displaying certainly the business's name, does not prevent a wall flag, if I have that right, saying open for business, but it does prevent those stand-up weighted flags. Am I calling those correctly, Steve?
It really doesn't, this is just a definition for the sandwich board sign. Those other types of signs, the sale signs that have been used in the community, those are still prohibited under the sign ordinance. This just takes the sandwich board sign, provides a definition and regulations for the sandwich board, where it was really a prohibited use in the past.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Motion to close the public hearing B.
Close public hearing B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 500. Can we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve public hearing item B concerning the South Kingstown zoning ordinance, Article 8, signs, with reference to the definition, use, and placement of the sandwich board type signs as detailed in the meeting agenda Exhibit 1. And I also move that we incorporate and reference the recommendations contained in the Planning Board's correspondence on the subject dated November 10th, 2010.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 500. Thank you. Which brings us to communications. We have a communication dated November 29th, 2010 from Teresa Tanzi, submitting her resignation from the Economic Development Committee, is received, placed on file, and the town council further directs.
I think that we should send a thank you note to Mrs. Tanzi for her time on the economic development, and also to wish her best in her new role as the representative for South Kingstown, or one of our representatives for South Kingstown, up in the House of Representatives.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, so we'll take a motion. Do we need a motion for the communication? Okay,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 500. Thank you. We have a communication B. It's a communication received December 1st and December 5th, 2010 from Kate Massinati, hope I said that right, and Dr. Celeste Corcoran, co-chairwoman of the South Kingstown High School Post-Prom Steering Committee, announcing plans for a traditional post-prom party to follow this year's junior prom, and requesting the opportunity for a student group to address the council. Is received, placed on file, and the town council further directs. And we have this group with us tonight, so welcome.
Hi, I'm Shannon Meek, and I'm a junior at South Kingstown High School. And we're just here to inform you about the post-prom that we're going to be having after our prom on Friday, May 15th, or 13th, sorry. It starts at 11 p.m. and it goes till 5 a.m. in the morning. And it's an alcohol substance-free event for students and their dates to go thereafter, instead of going out and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And we're going to be having fundraisers to fund the cost of this. We're going to be having lots of activities at the post-prom. And do you want to tell about the fundraiser?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. We're having a fundraiser February 15th at the high school, and they're having a hypnotist come. And I believe, I don't know, wait, how much? 10? The tickets are $10, and they'll be sold like in our school and throughout the town. And I think that's February 15th. So
And if you could let us know, you are Kaylee Stone.
I'm Kaylee Stone. About the activities.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah
Hello, Dad.
Stokes, and we're going to have a lot of different activities at the post-prom. It's going to be held at the YMCA, and the pools are going to be open for swimming. There's going to be a bouncy house available, a DJ, and, oh yeah, the hypnotist, of course, along with many others. So it's going to be really exciting.
Okay. Just want to make sure I have your names. It's Sherry?
No. I'll spell it for you. CHENOWI, Meek, MEEK. Yeah. Sorry, it's difficult.
Beautiful. I just.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions here at the table? I'm sorry. Alyssa?
Aaliyah, A-L-E-A, sorry. What? Stokes.
Thank you. Polly?
Have they done this before? It sounds like such a great place to have it at the YMCA. Could you have a whole variety of things you could do? Have they done this type of party before?
I think like a really long time ago they had one, but we haven't had it for a long time. So this is the first one.
Great idea.
Yeah, a while.
Good luck.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Jim?
I may have missed it, though. Where's the prom itself being held?
It's in Newport. I'm not sure. It's at
Johnny's,
a club or something.
Johnny's Atlantic, does that sound right? Johnny's Atlantic Beach Club? That's what they usually have.
Club?
Yeah,
it's
a
the
yacht
yacht
club.
club.
Yeah.
And it was just-
Kathy?
It's a little early on, but what's the feedback from the rest of the students? Are they excited about this?
Yeah, I think so. We have a lot. Every Tuesday morning, or most Tuesday mornings in advisory, we have meetings, and everyone that wants to participate in the planning goes down. And there's a lot of students, mostly girls, that are like helping plan it, and we get to choose the activities and everything. So it's good to be like a part of it. So we want to go there and have fun, and we'll be doing things that we like.
Excellent. Well, the girls bring the boys, so,
Yeah.
vice versa, so they might not be there, but they'll be there the night of the prom.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, good. Great job.
Did you want to mention the website? I know you're really looking for a lot of community volunteers, possibly chaperones. We're looking, I know attending the Partnership for Prevention meetings, you're looking for bakers and all sorts of community effort pulling together. So do you want to mention the
I think I
website?
could speak to that. I'm Dr. Corcoran. First of all, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to come before the town council today. We do have a website. It's SK High School Post-Prom Committee, and we are, on that website, there's information about what we need. We need support of our community, and we are getting support from the community. I'd like you to know that there are, the steering committee for this event is a group of concerned parents, community members who have come together to help our students have a safe post-prom. This is a long-standing tradition in South Kingstown that kind of dwindled over the last 10 years. So we are getting quite a bit of support in our community for our students, and we'd like you to know that as our leaders in the community, that the community is really coming together to support them. We are looking for monetary donations. We're looking for support from the community for raffle items that the students will have the night of the post-prom. We are looking for food donations for that evening. We're planning a great event for the kids, and we are meeting with them every other Tuesday to get their input as well. But I'd like you to know how proud we are of the parents of this high school group for coming together to help us pull this together for the students. Our website will tell you about the upcoming events and what we need, and we'll also notify you of who in the community has given support. We've already received monetary donations to the amount of probably close to $1,000 so far. Our target is $10,000 to run this event, so we're working hard to do that. As co-chair of the event and chairman of the fundraising part of our committee, I do hope that, we do get good community support. Our big fundraiser, as the students said, is going to be the Hypnotist on February 15th at the high school, which is for not only students, but parents and community members. It should be a very fun night, and that's one of our major fundraisers as well.
Jim?
Dr. Corcoran, how are you handling transportation to and from Newport?
I'm not running the prom itself. The high school is running the prom. The students will be getting their own transportation, arranging for their own transportation. The high school is not providing transportation for the students.
Thank you.
Further questions? Carol?
Now, the junior class usually does the Escapades event, and that donates money to the prom. Is that what that's for?
Yes.
As opposed to this?
Yes.
And the prom gets out around 11 o'clock, is that, or
Yes,
10?
and the students will be at the post-prom. They cannot leave the post-prom without a parent coming to pick them up. The whole idea is to extend their evening, because the kids' proms are just like 2 or 3 hours, and they've gone to all this expense to dress up, and it's a big night for them. And we know that the students would like to, prolong the evening of the prom. As a pediatrician in the community, I know that a lot of the kids get involved in house parties and drinking and unsafe behaviors. And as a member of the community and as a pediatrician, I came together with members of the partnership and the PTG. We started working on this summer to try to get the parents involved, the students involved, the community involved, so that the kids can have a great night, but be safe, because there's no reason they can't have an all-night event and have a lot of fun as long as they're safe. And there'll be chaperones. There will not be chaperones, parents from the junior class. The kids have asked us for that, so we will be looking for chaperones outside of parents of the junior class. But the whole idea is there definitely will be chaperones that night to keep the kids in the post-prom event. It will go to 5 in the morning. We're sort of constrained by the WISE operating hours the next day. But for the students will not be able to leave without a parent coming to get them. And that's basically, makes sense to keep them safe. So they'll be expected at the prom at a certain time, and they'll be expected to stay. And it's because we don't want them to leave, because there's going to be something going on every hour for them, and we want them to be able to enjoy it.
Thank you. And could you just let the public know where they can buy the tickets for the Hypnotist February 15th, South Kingstown High School, 7 o'clock?
The students will be starting to sell them at the lunches in the cafeteria after the January break from school. But at this point, we are currently marketing half the sale of the tickets, which is about 400 tickets, to the community. They're purchasable at the South Kingston Partnership for Prevention Office, which is 1058 Kingstown Road, and they are available there, or by contacting me or Eileen Stone or any of the members of the South Kingston Partnership for Prevention or members of the parent-teacher group from South Kingstown High School.
Beautiful. I have my tickets.
Good. Thank you very much for allowing us to come today.
We are just thrilled, and thank you and applauds to you for focusing and designing and creating this activity to focus on keeping our kids safe. So thank you from the bottom of our heart.
Thank you.
Which brings us to comments from interested citizens. Sorry, did I miss something? I'm sorry. Jim, how could I forget? We have a communication received December 8th from Councilman James O'Neill proposing adoption of a resolution to Governor-elect Lincoln Chafee regarding his planned financial policies as received, placed on file, and the town council further directs. Jim, I tried. What can I say?
I appreciate it. I won't take it personally, but I wrote this resolution because of my concern that small business and taxpayers seem to have no leader or leadership looking after their interests. I'm certainly a realist with the election. Obviously, Governor-elect Chafee was helped over the top with a very strong pro-union, pro-lobbyist, pro-insider help. And I'm worried that that assembled combination is not going to be healthy for the taxpayers of this state. I firmly believe that his early plans to, no matter how small the tax, but to hit tax-exempt items on a sales tax, when we've got unfunded liabilities and pension and healthcare accounts of over $9 billion. He's also apparently pledged to re-amortize the unfunded pensions rather than correcting the inequities and imbalances of the private sector versus the public sector, which will just simply put our children and grandchildren and parents further into debt. And I really believe that looking at what's happening in Washington, the expense side, it's spending what we have to control, and no one will seem to bite the bullet. And I'm very concerned that our taxpayers in this state and this town at the moment do not have a champion. And there are 8 or 9 reasons why the governor-elect needs to hear from us. And let me just from a standpoint mention these are what I feel are anti-business and anti-taxpayer actions that are going on up at the State House. Firstly, as we all know, the motor vehicle excise taxes that were, of course, supposed to be phased out over the years. Well, now we've been passed $123 million back from the General Assembly and former governor on to towns and taxpayers. As I mentioned, Governor-elect Chafee wants to pull in $100 million from sales taxes on currently tax-exempt items. TDI, temporary disability insurance, is going up 10% for employees beginning January 1st. Employers are also paying that same increased percentage for unemployment compensation, of which the state of Rhode Island has borrowed almost $300 million from the federal government to pay these bills. If you read the papers lately, Rhode Island state income tax withholding beginning January 1 will reflect state officials setting withholding amounts higher than strictly necessary. Does this remind you of the state of California and the IOUs back to their citizens? If any of you walk the streets like I do with our small business, healthcare premiums are rising for small business anywhere from 10 to 35%. And I talk to small business all the time, and these are real numbers. If any of you have visited the gas stations lately, you will see that regular has gone from $2.60 to $3.10 in 3 months. And if you heat your home with oil, we've gone from $2.59 back at Labor Day to $2.99 today. These are crushing expenses for the average person. State employees will be receiving 2-3% back-to-back pay raises, as well as longevity, and of course pension benefits. Basically, the taxpayers got snookered here with a deferral, which this was done to balance the current year's state budget. So I guess the question comes down to, what doesn't the Governor-elect Chafee and the General Assembly understand about the situation affecting all of the taxpayers and small business in this town? I believe our town council should defend our South Kingstown taxpayers, citizens, and small business. We cannot afford all of these new expenses that we're facing. The new governor, as I said, needs to stop, look, and listen. He needs to analyze what's happening and not to move forward with a tax increase or any recommendations to re-amortize this horrific unfunded pension liability. This is what we need to do for our taxpayers. They're still smarting from the motor vehicle pass-through tax that's taken place in this current year. And we're just at a position here that we need to put more money into taxpayers and small business hands and not in government hands. I think we would do best to have our citizens have these funds. So hence, that was my resolution. My concern is real. I don't like the company he keeps at the moment because I don't see any champion for South Kingstown taxpayers and citizens coming out of Providence at the moment.
Do we have comments here at the table? Questions? Carol?
Well, first, I want to say I don't agree with the timing of this resolution or the content. I think that this is, Governor-elect Chafee needs to be given a chance to see what policies and procedures he's going to come up with concerning taxes and economic development. I think he's well aware of our economic crisis, and he has a very difficult job ahead of him, and I think we need to give him the time to start to figure out what his plan is. I mean, I understand and I agree that there's problems facing taxpayers and small businesses and all businesses in this state, and but we need to give him a chance, and I am not supportive of this resolution.
And to respond to that, that's why I said he needs to stop, look, and listen. He needs to analyze this. He can't say, just because he said last May, well, we're going to put a 1% sales tax on currently tax-exempt items because it'll be very small pain. That's $100 million out of our economy. So with that, Carol, I'm giving him that opportunity. What he has to do is back away from his pledge on the reamortization. What he has to do is back away from any tax increase until all the better minds can get together and take a look at what our people like ourselves on this council, our ear is closest to the ground for the people in need. He needs to hear from us. That's who he needs to hear from. This is absolutely wrong that he will not champion, and I see no champion for the taxpayers and small business in this community, and he needs to start involving us. So I agree with you, but that's what my stop, look, and listen was to do. Don't move forward with this tax issue. Put it aside and see what the better heads come up with here. Put the reamortization aside. Wait to take a look at the long-term costs. Don't say you're going to do these things. So in a way, you're agreeing with me, and I'm agreeing with you that that's why I said here, we've got to stop, look, and listen here and really analyze this situation.
Further comments here at the table?
Jim, I will say that when you say the taxpayers don't have the champion, if you look at the last election, Mr. Chafee got 47.6% of the vote here in the town of South Kingstown. The next closest was 31%, followed by 13.7% and 7%. So he got more votes than you got in the town of South Kingstown in the last election, Jim. So the people obviously wanted him in the town of South Kingstown. I think by sending this up, it is mean-spirited. I think it's wrong. If you want to sign it and send your name on it, you can certainly do that. I would never put my name on this resolution or pretty much most of your resolutions in the past because of your tone. The man hasn't even taken the office yet. He's not steadfast even on the income tax. He said he was going to look, not the income tax, the increase on the items that aren't taxed yet, to look and see what the status is financially in the state, and then make his move. And I think that you, and as a town council, and every town council, for the man who hasn't even been sworn in, to give him the time to look and see what's going on up the state and let him make his first move before you send up a letter like this. So my motion would be to table this, and Jim can send it up on his own.
Second.
I would just like to comment on this too. The purpose.
You're going to make it a personal attack, or you're going to direct the issues like Kathy?
Personal attack. I said send it up.
Jim.
No, I'm coming back.
Okay. I think we as a town council maybe need to re-look at what is the goal of a resolution. And when we put forward a resolution, we try to send it to our 38 cities and towns with support for our legislators. And you know that we just met with our legislators, a week ago. And they're looking for resolutions, and they're looking for resolutions to support so that they can do their work better at the General Assembly. So I'm not going to attack. That's not my personality to do that. I will comment that most resolutions that we've had here at the table have been focused on, maybe one or two ideas. And I see many shining forward here. I see election information. I see some pension stuff. The motor vehicle excise tax is mentioned. The 12 furlough days with the state raises, the union relationships. So I think when we go to write a resolution, if we can focus on one idea, it may help all of us come together to support our legislators. Continuing, it's the re-amortization. I'm not sure that I've heard maybe the same talk that you've heard with the re-amortization being supported. So maybe I'm just not walking the same line of people that you are walking in. So, I'm not going to support the resolution, but I'm not going to beat up on you, Jim. Asking maybe if we can limit future resolutions to 1 or 2 items to focus on. And I think that we here at the table, only function as a group of 5. You know that you have the right, just as all of us here at the table, to send a personal letter to Link Chafee. But I think that we really need to look at the focus and working with our senators and representatives to support them up at the General Assembly. I mean, that really is our goal here at the Town Council table. So we need to maybe differentiate the issues and be more supportive of the legislators so that we can support the town of South Kingston here and the taxpayers so that our legislators can better do our work. So did you feel attacked with that? I hope you didn't. Polly.
Yeah,
Make a statement too. Jim, I read it, and I really had difficulty getting beyond the first 2 paragraphs, because the first 2 whereases, because I thought they were so confrontational. And I thought if I were the governor-elect, or if I were reading it for the governor-elect, I would really be hard put to give any credibility to the others, because they were so, language is so right up there and confrontational. So, yes, I would not be able to sign this either, because I think we do have to give the poor man a chance. I think things change. You run in an election, you say all sorts of things. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're going to do. But I think that let's give him a chance and hope that he will remember the people of South Kingstown. I'm sure he will. Thank you, Ella.
Jim, is it okay if we go to Carol? Or would you
Yeah,
like to-
no, go ahead.
Carol.
I just want to say, Jim, plain and simple, this is not in the best interest of the town at this time to send such a thing as this. I mean, it takes a direct hit on our governor-elect. I agree that it's not very nice, and we can't support it.
Jim?
Yeah, when I brought up these 9 issues, why the people in this town are hurting, every one of those is exact, honest, and correct. People have less and less money in their pocket. We have a spending issue in Rhode Island, which apparently the 4 of you will not address with me, which is too bad. All my past resolutions have been on the money, mainly pensions, and you see the mess we're in. When I put forward pension resolutions that demanded some very hard decisions, they didn't make it past this table, which is too bad. But there has not been a single resolution I've put forward that hasn't wound its way into being absolutely correct, and it's too bad that they weren't handled long ago by folks at the General Assembly, Governor's Office, who are unable to make the tough decisions that the public demands of us. We continue to bypass tough decisions. I'm not going to apologize for this. I'm acting on behalf of South Kingstown residents and small businesses who are absolutely being crushed. And I see nothing at the moment coming from the General Assembly or the Governor-elect's office that gives me some hope here that he will take the spending crisis as the serious crisis and not look for ways to raise revenues. So I stand on all my resolutions. They're honest, they're correct, there are no numbers that are incorrect, and I just wish the 4 of you would understand why the state is in this mess that it's in. And I've tried to show you over the years that this unconscionable spending that's taken place, if you don't remember the tobacco $700 million settlement to take care of deficits, getting rid of annuity for the next 50 years, you have to see what these people do up there. They're not doing anything for the overall good of the state's taxpayers.
Is there further comment here at the table? Okay, I believe we have a motion in a second to place this on file. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, no abstentions. Motion carries 4-1-0. Which now brings us to comments from interested citizens. Do we have anything here at the table before we go to the floor? Okay, Bobby.
I'm the only one that wants to make a comment. That's our problem, folks. You need somebody a lot smarter than me to make the comments. But anyway, I wasn't going to kind of make a comment, but you guys fire me up when I listen to this kind of dialogue, which I think is a good thing, by the way. The only bad thing about it is it's the same thing that's going on in our national government. Is the art of compromise is not one that is out there right now, although I listened to quite a bit today when I was picking up a few things, and I guess some people think the president made a big compromise, but it's going to work out for most people, so maybe that was a compromise. Well, I've got the same things on my mind that I always have. One of them is that I listened to Arnie Duncan the other day, I think that's his name, isn't it? The Education Department boss. And I didn't hear one positive thing out of his mouth for about a half an hour about the state of education in the country. And as I said numerous times over a few years, I think I've mentioned it at least, that I don't have the answer to this. I wish I did. I'd be a magic person probably, but I think part of the answer is motivation, student motivation and things like that, and students realizing that they are competitive with the rest of the world now and not just with their neighbors. It's kind of simplistic, but it isn't, because we're bombarded today with all this media stuff. I mean, kids, they got something in their hand and they got something in their ear all the time. I don't even know if they have time to look at the world and what's going on around them. I did hear something else yesterday. I've thought about India, I've thought about China. I'm thinking about going to China next year, just to look at it, just to get a visual of the country that is doing things, and I'm not happy with a lot of things they do. In fact, it's ugly. I mean, the way they treat people and whatever over there. But the one thing they are doing is they're completely revamping their infrastructure of the whole country, the high-speed trains, the wind, solar wind, everything you can think of, they're doing it. And not only in their own country, they're going all over the world. That's why diesel fuel's so expensive over here. Said that to Governor Chafee before he was elected 3 or 4 years ago at a meeting I went to. Yeah, what about China? Well, they're going to find out about China pretty soon, and they're going to find out about India. They already know, but I'm not saying these things are easy. The good thing is that if the whole world is in better shape, we all should be in better shape. But the decisions that are being made in this country, and you are the ground floor on it. You don't want to make a resolution. You don't want to sign a resolution, and okay, you don't like Jim's resolution. Well, get together and make a resolution that you all can agree with on. See, this is what I think is wrong. This is what's wrong with the whole thing. And if I'm the only guy that can get up here and talk about these things, we got a sad situation in the country. We're complacent, we're spoiled brats, and that's the story. And in this community, it's probably more so than in most places. I mean, you don't have to go too far. Drive 100 miles in that direction and see what Jim is saying is 10 times more true in certain places, even in this country, and actually a lot in this country. We are kidding ourselves. We're kidding ourselves big time. Okay, I didn't mean to get into all that in a way, but I do mean to get into it. I just wish I could get into it in a lot better way than I do. I think we need to figure out how to work together, not just on the small stuff like signs and stuff like that, but some big stuff. I'm not saying you can't tackle it all at once. Tackle a few things. Think, at least verbalize. Nobody likes to be negative. I'm not negative. I think this is the greatest country in the world. I think this is one of the greatest communities in the world that we live in. But so what? When it isn't the days of old. We don't have covered wagons. It doesn't take days to go from here to New York. Right now, as you all know better than I do, you can communicate with anybody in the world in a split second. And some people have figured out how to make billions of dollars because of it. And that's okay. But we better start sharing the wealth in this country. This country's in big trouble. It's not in big trouble. I've heard it I don't know how many times recently. The money's all out there, but the companies and the people that have control of this money, the 1/10 of 1% of Americans that pull are the ones that are controlling the whole thing, are not willing to invest it. They're not willing to realize that they need to do a little giving back to this country. Now, I'm not saying they're all like that, but there's a lot of them that are like that. We're in a very selfish thing now. It'll come down, because if that percentage isn't a good thing, it is not a good thing. It's not even a good thing for the people that have all the money. It's not a good thing for them, because eventually it will collapse around them. It's simplistic. It really is easy, but I don't think most people, and I don't know, people, we're only little individuals walking around and taking care of ourselves for the most part. And yet, there's people out there. I just heard in the news, the young man from Fall River was killed over there. I watch Jim Lehrer every day, and every few days they have the 10 or 12 kids that have lost their lives, and they are kids. Most of them are in their 20s, sacrificing themselves. And what are we going to say to you? Like somebody was saying the other day, if you say anything, it's like, well, you're not a patriot. It's got nothing to do with not being a patriot. I have the highest respect for anybody in our service, but that doesn't mean that this government has sent them doing the right thing right now. And I'm not sure about that 100%, but I think the handwriting's on the wall. Listen to the smartest people in the world talk about it. When it all comes down to a close, things are going to go their own way over in those parts of the world. We don't not have the ability to change entire countries, especially the way we're going about it. I'm going to leave it at that. I'd like to see this word compromise more often. I went to I'm going to both councils. I go to Narragansett too. I can't talk like this in Narragansett for some reason. Maybe I'll get up there and do it one day. I don't know. But you guys give me a break. And it's an early meeting, so I thought I could take a couple of minutes. But compromise, and is Jim wrong? Come on now. Just because he's saying a few things and he gets a little emotional, by God, we better get a little emotional. We better get emotional fast. I forgot to mention Brazil. Did anybody watch 60 Minutes last night? Does anybody watch that one? Well, sometimes they have a bunch of junk on 60 Minutes, but I'll tell you, the guy from running Brazil now has got a 4th grade education. And the only problem they have in that country is people would rather go to the beach than work, because they're all set over there. They've got it all going for them. They got all the oil. They've got the infrastructure going. They're doing all the things that I think we all think in this country are just going to some magic way happen. We got to make them happen. You're the guys that can start the ball rolling.
Thank you, Bobby. Any other comments from interested citizens? I just have a few updates. Just a reminder that we have our work session with the town council and the school committee on December 20th, 7 o'clock. And then we have 3 capital improvement work sessions coming up in January. Our first one is January 4th. January 5th is the second one, and then January 13th. I'd also just like to mention that it was a fabulous tree lighting ceremony and band at the Guild on December 5th. So kudos to our Recreation Department. That was December 5th, where they had Santa arrival, and I went. It was absolutely fabulous. And this Thursday, we have the holiday celebration at the center. So it's just another activity that our town sponsors. And I'd also like to mention that on September 25th, there was an international coastal cleanup. And again, kudos to our town of South Kingstown. We had 224 volunteers who participated in this cleanup of East Matunic State Beach, Deep Hole Fishing Area, Moonstone Beach, Green Hill Beach, and South Kingstown Town Beach. And it included many organizations such as the Girl Scouts, and they collected 1,780 pounds of debris along our 4.5 mile area of coastline. So thank you to all the volunteers who participated. And just a few things from the chamber, that they had a very successful job fair last Thursday inside the Wakefield Mall in conjunction with the State Department of Labor and Training. It was attended by 225 job seekers with 22 employers. And they would just like to send a message again to shop local and use your South Kingstown Chamber gift certificates for local restaurants, retail shops, hair salons, gas stations, etc. Make wonderful gifts for the family and friends at this holiday season. And last but not least, remember that we have February 15th, tickets on sale for the Hypnotist to support the post-prom activities, and also the Gift of the Magi is coming up from the Contemporary Theater. So that moves us to Town Manager's report.
I just wanted to advise that the capital budget is online, and you've already indicated the 3 sessions that'll be held in January. If people have questions on any of the content of the document, certainly they can give our office a call.
Thank you. Town Solicitor's report. Okay, thank you. Before we do appointments, I just want to mention that our Assessment Board of Review is in desperate need of some applicants. So if there is anyone out there in the community that knows anyone that would like to fill out an application for the Assessment Board of Review, that would be great, or anyone here at the Town Council table. Other than that, we have 2 appointments.
So we'd like to reappoint Peter Nunes to the Historic District Commission. His term expires in December 2013.
Right, do we want to do both of them?
And we'd also move that we reappoint William P. Sheffield to the Historic District Commission, and his term also expires on December 2013.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries 500. Brings us to new business item 13A. We have a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Core Business Technologies, 224 Pawtucket Avenue, East Providence, Rhode Island, to provide and install new data networking cabling in 5 town facilities in amount not to exceed $29,495, including a contingency, and as further described in a memorandum from the IT System Administrator to the Town Manager dated November 29th, 2010, and entitled Bid Recommendation Network Wiring. Steve?
As the memorandum indicates, there's a need for us to reconstruct the data wiring throughout the municipal buildings. That would be the town hall, neighborhood guild, public services building, highway garage, and the senior center. The new wiring will provide us with an increase in capacity to be able to manage and handle data. 3 quotes were provided. We're recommending award to the low quoted price for core business as outlined in the resolution. I'd be glad to answer any questions the council may have on the item before you.
We have any questions here at the table?
Motion to approve new business item A.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 500. We have new business item B, a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Flood Ford of East Greenwich, 2,545 South County Trail, East Greenwich, Rhode Island, for a 2011 Ford F-350 4x4 regular cab pickup truck with lift gate and amount not to exceed $20,975. Include trade-in allowance and as further described in a memorandum from the Public Services Director to the Town Manager dated November 30th, 2010, and entitled Bid Recommendation, Wastewater Division Pickup. Steve?
Recommendation is to award to the lowest qualified bidder, Flood Ford. This will be a replacement of a 2003 vehicle that has 103,000 miles at this time. This is the vehicle that has a lift gate, and it's used for servicing each of the town's pumping stations.
Motion to approve new business item B.
Second?
We have a motion second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 500. New business item C. A resolution authorizing the town manager to execute a 5-year lease agreement with the option to renew 5 subsequent 5-year renewals for cellular antenna placement on the town's public services lattice antenna, in accordance with terms of lease agreements as approved by the town solicitor. This authorization is also conditioned upon site plan review and approved by the town's technical review committee, and is further described in a memorandum from the Public Services Director to the Town Manager dated November 30th, 2010, and entitled Metro PCS Lease Agreement Public Service Lattice Antenna. Steve?
This will be the 6th antenna attachment on the monopole that is located behind the Public Services building closest to the hospital. That pole was constructed at no cost to the town when AT&T removed the old tower, placed a new, I said monopole, it's a lattice tower, replaced it. Our arrangement with AT&T is that they would pay for the cost of demolition of the old tower and completion of a new tower and future attachment agreements for other communication companies locating on the pole. They would receive 60% of the revenue, and we would receive 40%. This this lease will generate approximately $31,000 in the first year, and there's an escalator each year there forward, of which we'll be receiving approximately $12,500. The provider will also be required to provide structural changes to the tower, to ensure that the wind load is proper based on the number of attachments that are there. Currently, that tower behind the Public Services building is generating over $150,000 in income to the general fund a year based on the antennas attached to it. I think it's also important to note that the 1996 Federal Communications Act prohibited local governments from barring the installation of the antennas with the communications companies. The use of the pole at the Public Services building provides a consolidation point and does away with the need for multiple locations throughout the community. This centralizes the activity, and obviously it also provides a good revenue source for the town to offset property tax needs.
Questions here at the table?
Approval of business item C.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Which brings us to new business item F, a resolution authorizing the renewal of annual software support fees, Information Management Corporation, 13 Sentinel Drive, North Grafton, Massachusetts, in an amount not to exceed $17,135, and is further described in a memorandum from the police chief to the town manager dated December 3rd, 2010, and entitled IMC Computer Annual Support Fees Recommendation for Renewal.
We, along with 37 other communities, purchase the software services through IMC, and on a yearly basis, we have to sign a software maintenance agreement. That software maintenance agreement, as delineated in the chief's memo, is split between the police department as well as EMS. There's also cost factors for the fire dispatch that also goes through IMC. That's paid for through town funds. We'll be using dollars appropriated in the EMS budget, the police budget, as well as grant funds that come on an annual basis through the Public Safety Grant Administration Office at the state.
Any questions for Steve?
Make a motion to approve new business item F.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. New business item G, a resolution authorizing the extension of an award of contract originally granted on July 11th, 2010 to W.W. Granger Incorporated at 78 Jefferson Boulevard, Warwick, Rhode Island, for industrial equipment and supplies based on the State of Rhode Island Master Price Agreement 348 from November 30th, 2010 to February 28th, 2011, and is further described in a memorandum from the financial controller to the town manager dated December 6, 2010, and entitled Bid Recommendation, Industrial Equipment and Supplies.
The town makes use of the state's purchasing system and uses the master price agreement for the purchase of industrial equipment and supplies. As noted in Frank Xavier's memorandum, what this does is provide direct discounts to the catalog prices for the purchase of these materials and supplies by various municipal departments. The resolution this evening is an extension of the existing award through February of 2011, at which time I believe the state will probably be either extending this contract again or seeking new bids on this price agreement.
Any questions here at the table?
I move approval of new business item G.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. This concludes, does anybody have anything further to add before we adjourn?
To adjourn.
And I would just like to wish everyone a happy holiday and a safe journey for those that are traveling. So we have a motion, and do we have a second?
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.